So I think it's high time I do the evil version of one of my recommendation lists. To be clear, this is not going to be a repeat of the worst designs I've ever covered video. This isn't going to be a worst of all time list. The criteria to be on this one is pretty simple. You have to look at the figure on your shelf and think to yourself, why do I even have this? So welcome to PerspectiveEnd recommends you stay the hell away. Also, before we start, just a reminder to everyone, I'm still not home yet, though I expect to be relatively soon, so I will not be able to respond to you guys much at all today. I'm gonna have so many comments to respond to when I get home. Also, for the question of the video, by the end of it, do you have any of these figures, and if you do, how do you feel about them? Anyways, the first thing you should not buy is Titan's Return Slugslinger. I cannot make this clear enough, this is not a retool of Trigger Happy. About twice a week since I first recommended Trigger Happy, who I spent the previous video referring to as Misfire the entire time because I'm dumb, but that's beside the point, people have contacted me to thank me for recommending Trigger Happy, because that caused them to pick up the figure and fall in love with it. But also, several times people have contacted me and mentioned they are currently eyeing up this thing because they are under the impression that this will be a simple retool of that. Again, no! The only thing this shares with the Trigger Happy is the legs, and not even the crotches are the same, and this just has a mountain of stuff going against it. For starters, this has a lot of crap hanging off the back in robot mode. These wings carry a lot of mass, especially if you don't take off the weapons, because it's just kind of annoying to do every time. And despite the fact that they aren't really in the way, they really feel in the way. It could just be how stiff they are, like you just want one more dimension of play with them. They also really don't look cool. If they were swept up like most back wings are, that would be one thing, but they hang down. They could look like a cape, but there's a huge chunk missing from the middle, and that completely ruins the illusion. These just don't help. What also doesn't help is that the crotch constantly wants to untransform. Just another minor annoyance the robot mode has to deal with. But lastly, in regards to the robot mode, it just doesn't look cool. He looks like a dweeb. Also, him namesuck. So even that's a point against him. But really, this thing's biggest flaw is the transformation. It's just stupid simple. First up, rip off his dumb headmaster. You can't do anything with it yet, so just set it off to the side. Fold in the hands and hinge down the shoulders. Hinge up his backpack. Now you can open the door you just revealed on his back and plonk his head in. Then close that again. Hinge down the crotch, rotate the feet back, bend the knees as far as they will go, and peg the wrist spurs into the sides of the legs. And that's it! I have never bothered showing you all the steps of a transformation before. I like to let you guys figure out these puzzle boxes because that's a huge part of the fun for me. But I just had to this time because it's so ridiculously simple, where basically no part of him changes, they just slide up or down. It's super unsatisfying, and it's really easy to actually damage the figure. If you forget how the wrists peg in, and you try to move the legs at all, that gives you a lot of torque to bend up those arm spurs. The first time I ever went to transform this into robot mode, I tweaked those tabs so bad they were basically rotated 90 degrees from where they were supposed to be. You can still see the stress marks it left. And then the alt mode is just lame. Like, what use would a two cockpit setup be? If one is the pilot and the other is the gunner, then the pilot either has the whole right or left of his view blocked off. And I don't even want to think of how this would work with two pilots. But yeah, there is just nothing good about this thing. Both modes look lame, the transformation is completely lame, and it's an older figure so the posability is lame. I have no other words to describe this figure other than it's just lame. Avoid it. Next up, we are going to hit another Titan's Return figure, and this one's a little tempting because he's supposed to suck, but the end result is that he sucks. There is just so much wrong with Titan's Return Broadside. He's got no waist, his feet are built wrong so he constantly wants to fall over, it's almost impossible to not hit the button that pops up his collar pieces when handling this figure, the stickers on him really want to peel off. Parts on him constantly want to pop off like the leg wings and back plate. He's got a huge backpack. I'd also be willing to bet there are psychos out there who will say he's got the wrong design. What are these tabs for? And then he pretty easily might have the worst alt modes of all time. I mean, the transformation on this guy is bad enough. It basically boils down to stand him up as straight as possible, or do that, but also have the knees bent, and that's it. The boat mode is tolerable if you only look at it from the top, but once you get to the side, you are having problems, and the underside is just a joke. And then the jet mode is just heinous. This has to be one of the worst looking things I've ever seen. Not 1% of this figure is even trying to hide here. It's just a dude on his back, or a dude popping a squat on his back, with a hat that's supposed to look like the front of a jet. The famously bad G1 figure had a better jet mode. Think about that. What is it with the clear plastic wings? Like, were these supposed to look like glass or something? Why would they do that? This thing is the antithesis of aerodynamic. There were just no shits given when designing this mode. Sometimes when designing a triple changer, you have to make compromises to get it to work, but there aren't any compromises here because that implies they got something out of it. A compromise does not function by going, well, I need this thing, so literally everything, including this, has to suck. I mean, this kind of works for Broadside since he's supposed to be such a pathetic sad sack, but like, only on a meta level. If you actually want a good figure of this guy, look elsewhere. There's nowhere else to look. Next up, the Red Line. Just like The whole thing. Don't buy any of it. At this point, I've sampled enough of it to confidently say that it's not produced a halfway worth a damn figure yet, and you just don't need to waste your money on it as of right now. The upcoming knockout may change that, but don't hold your breaths on it just yet. Next up, don't get a Generations Nightbeat. This is a recent addition to my collection since it was like $5 on BBTS, and it wasn't worth it. Honestly, even though I just got it, all I want to do is put this thing in the trash. It's concerningly light, it's floppy, it poses like crap. What the fuck is this weapon supposed to be? And I mean, just look at it. It's so not cool. It doesn't evoke the IDW character it's trying to be. It's got hella kibble. If you look at it from the top, this might be one of the ugliest figures I've ever seen with an absolutely awful backpack. The neck is really hunched. It looks like crap. Like this is one of the cheapest looking figures I've ever seen. Like a dollar store Chinese knockoff. For some reason, they painted the back of the head red like it had light piping, but I for the life of me can't think of a reason you'd do that. The eyes are already painted. Why spend more money painting the light collector at that point? And if there wasn't one, why spend the money then? And I just can't say how bad this transformation sucks. Like, not in the usual way either. Like, for sure, it's too simple, but that's not the issue here. It's not even adjacent to the issue here. I have never seen a figure with more aggressive tabs. When you get this thing together, it locks together. And getting it together is a pain in the ass because you have no wiggle room. You have 0% clearance on anything, so getting the tabs where they need to go requires you to flex the plastic every step of the way. I don't want to touch this thing. I don't want to look at this thing. I honestly would not take this for free. Now, I do another couple figures, but I gotta leave at least something left if I ever want to do maybe another one of these videos again. So I'm going to word you away from just one more figure, and that's Kingdom Rhinox. Now, to be fair, more than 1 or 2 people have contacted me either telling me that I'm too critical of this thing, or that they liked it and thought that I was going to before they watched the video. To be fair to myself, I have had way more people contacting me saying stuff like, I thought you were being too harsh on this thing, and I thought it looked good, so I didn't listen to you and picked it up. Now I wish I trusted you, since you were right, this thing is awful. I've even had at least one person who didn't like me drop in and say something along the lines of, you're usually full of shit, so I thought you were exaggerating this thing's problems. But no, I regret wasting my money on this. You were right this time. And I don't say that to flex. I say that to warn you. Don't buy this. You don't want this. Even the people who don't like me are willing to say that a broken clock is right twice a day about this. It looks bad. It poses bad. Though I have figured out that the knees can actually bend more than I initially gave it credit for. It's just that there's a second joint on them that doesn't flow naturally from the first. So I'd reach the end of the travel on the first one and get no extra motion out of it, so I'd think that it couldn't go any further. But no, I just had to change the way I was trying to bend the knee, and that does get you a pretty solid bend. But the faux forming on this thing makes it look less accurate, and actually a lot worse. The legs on this are a calamity. It's weirdly paper thin from the top. The shoulders are some of the ugliest joints I've ever seen, really running for the #1 spot on that list. The accessories are trash, the beast mode is a brick, and the transformation is a travesty against both the concepts of fun and time. It takes way too long to do way too little, it's confusing, it's clashy, you'll never remember the steps in the order they are supposed to go off the top of your head, and flexing things where they need to go never feels good. It's honestly like all of the lack of joy that Nightbeat's transformation brings just concentrated in this figure's shins. I feel actual disgust every time I look at this thing. Like pit in my stomach hate. I honestly don't want to donate this to charity or something because I don't want to inflict this on some poor child. Like, how sad would it be if they're doling out the toys and every kid gets one, and because I gave this to charity, one kid gets saddled with this and is stuck with a sad Christmas, or birthday, or whatever this is for. Like, I don't want to do that. This belongs in the garbage before it belongs in some poor kid's home. I will give red figures to charity before I give this thing. I don't need the karma of cursing someone with this on my soul. But yeah, these are all figures that I think if you get them, you will either be really unenthused to have wasted your money on, or just flat out hate. I understand that people have different tastes, but sometimes you just know that people aren't going to like a thing. But hey, if you enjoy these and I don't, I'm happy to hear that. Just because I don't like these doesn't mean that you should also have to not. Feel free to tell me I'm wrong about these in the comments. I will see them when I get back from my trip. Eventually. It will probably take me a few weeks to get through everything being gone for so long, but I will do it. My will cannot be broken. Anyways, that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.